It's your boy, the Versace Stunner, with another episode of VSW. Thank you. This is a very special episode. That is right. It's our special Austin 316 episode. We're here, the Versace Stoner with Disabled Wolf.
Give me a hell yeah!
Oh, hell yeah!
What?
And we're going to be going over some of our favorite memories of Stone Cold. You know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. So sit back, relax, spark one up, and listen to what we have to talk about.
Well, Stone Cold 316 Day is tomorrow, or today is 316, day before St. Paddy's Day. How ironic, since the origin of 316 Day is when he won the King of the Ring tournament, and he just revealed to the whole world after he won that Austin 316 will whip your ass.
You know, I remember that day when Austin came in, you know, and he was a little bit of the underdog in that tournament. His momentum was starting to build. He had come into W, you know, he started his career early, you know, ECW, stunning Steve Austin.
Yeah.
WCW with the Hollywood Blondes. He was tag team champions, very successful. But
didn't he team with Brian Pillman too?
Did. He teamed with Pillman, and he feuded with him too in WWE. But, you know, there was just something missing. He came into WWE as the ringmaster. He was managed by Ted DiBiase. You know, DiBiase kind of had him by the ropes. He showed him he had his own version of the $1 Million
champ.
He had his own version of the $1 Million Dream. You know, but he really wasn't. And there was something that wasn't there, and after that King of the Ring, it was there, and the birth of Stone Cold was there.
All right, it launched an entire new era of wrestling all around the world for men to be blossomed for the college age demographic.
Oh, it definitely. That's what I think was one of the most single things to have happened, to have jump started, you know, the new era, or next generation, into the Attitude Era. You know, now we all of a sudden we have this badass on TV flipping the bird, going, oh hell yeah, calling people a dumb son of a bitch, whatever it was that he was saying.
Always standing up to his evil boss, which most people cite Austin as a pop culture influence for what they wish they could say to their boss and get away with, like the evil Mr. McMahon.
How many people would love to just walk up to their boss, you know, and give them the Stone Cold Stunner? And how many people probably have? You don't know how many people in high school used to stun each other per day.
I remember elementary school, we used to stun each other, do the suck it taunts, you name it.
You know, I was a little bit older, so I was, you know, we were in, you know, what was it, be freshman, junior year, and, you know, Austin was just railing. He was getting ready. He just won that Royal Rumble. You know, his first Royal Rumble victory.
And this is what led to Disabled becoming a fan for life. Your young Disabled was always lost. He was into Pokemon, Power Rangers, and that. So I was into wrestling. I remember the faces, and one of my dad's friends went to WrestleMania. I have a program somewhere in my garage of the Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold, Undertaker, Kane, WrestleMania with Mike Tyson program with that poster. Good God, I wish I was a teenager during that era.
You know, I actually went to that WrestleMania. I vaguely, I remember bits and pieces of it live. I was younger.
Before the age of smartphones, Twitter,
you know, me and my friend
media.
got last minute tickets, and he dragged me along. And I was excited to go. We had some kind of like mid-range seats. It wasn't up close, but we went for the fun of it. And you know, everything just went wild when Austin won. He was the new face of the company. You know, I was a big HBK fan. I won't lie. I was a huge DX fan. I wanted HBK to retain the title. I wasn't too looking forward to Austin winning it that night. I knew it was going to happen.
I'll admit, I was too horrified seeing the entrances of Kane and The Undertaker because I was so horrified of Kane when I was younger. But I did come back after a few minutes, and my dad ordered it. He was super into it, and it was Austin versus Michaels, and it was the first match I really, really watched.
And it was great. It was Austin is an entertainer. He's great in the mic. He's great in the ring. He's a great wrestler. And that's what I think really sold it for me, too. That WrestleMania, I remember, like a couple weeks later, a month later, when it finally hit VHS, I bought it right away so I could watch it again. There was no network. There was none of that.
You had to go to Blockbuster to rent a movie.
Or if you were lucky enough, you had the VHS, you ordered the pay-per-view, you recorded it. I didn't get to record that one as I went to it, but I bought it when it came out, watched it again, and again, and it's probably still to this day, besides the early on WrestleManias, one of my favoriteest WrestleManias ever. You had such iconic matches. All of them were iconic, but you did have that Undertaker-Kane match for the first time.
And you had that dumpster match, too.
Dumpster match. You had all these great matchups, and early Triple H. You had all these guys. And then you had Austin.
Nation of Domination.
Great Nation of Domination and early Rock. All these people that really just influenced the next years to come after that.
How ironic it was the first time I ever watched wrestling. It is ironic because people tend to forget. Maybe they don't because he retired. Shawn Michaels wrestled with a broken fucking back in that match.
He was destined to lose. We found out later that he was already injured. He needed the time off. He needed to heal. He needed the surgery. He was going to leave that night anyways without the championship. And I think it was brilliant the way they did it. They had Tyson turn on him. Tyson became an Austin fan. He knocked him out.
That was hilarious. I remember watching archive footage of the Raws leading up to it with frickin' Tyson in the ring trying to fuck over Steve Austin the whole time. And then all of a sudden he turned on DX right when Triple H was interfering in that match with Shawn Michaels.
And I'll tell you one thing, though. This is one thing that I'll never forget is that Raw after that WrestleMania. Because we went into school that Monday, and at that Monday night, every single person that I know was glued to that television to see Austin come out as champion, what he was going to do. We watched Triple H reform DX that night, starting off a brand new stable of Degeneration X, bringing in badass Billy Gunn and the Road Dogg Jesse James, the New Age Outlaws. You brought in X-Pac. You brought in all these guys.
You didn't know?
Triple H was the new leader of the faction. And it was something different. HBK was kind of put to the shadows. He'd come back later. They would feud. Meanwhile, Austin was running the show. He had the biggest feud ever in WWE with the number one top dog of them all, Mr. McMahon.
God damn it, you son of a bitch. This is Disabled's Vince imitation. I hope you all like it. But you can shit for me for. Either way, back to you, Pete.
And I just remember as a kid, you already had Vince kind of coming out as boss. Yeah, the Montreal screw job, he obviously had to reveal himself, and he was already this kind of hated character. And he really used that fuel to really become that hated boss.
And the funny part is, it was a screw job what happened in Survivor Series in Montreal with Earl Hebner ring the bell. That's what gave birth to that Mr. McMahon character.
It really did, and it wasn't even supposed to go like that. All Bret had to do was just agree to lose that match and not leave and walk away with the title, as so many people are afraid that happens. The relevancy of that is true. I was just reading something the other day. Somebody was talking, Garcia, the guy that's fighting Christian Casanova on Friday for the Women's title, was like, the real way is you don't leave the company until you lost that belt, and by no means are you leaving with that title. And everybody was so afraid that Bret was going to walk away with the title like Alundra Blaze did years before and just make a mockery of it. He was going to the WCW. He was going to the number one rival.
I still don't know. It's like a coin flip if he would have walked away or not. Because you really don't know who to trust at that time.
You know, Brett said that he would have lost it the next week on another show before he left.
No, the day after in America, he didn't want to lose it in his home country to Shawn Michaels.
And that's the thing, and you don't know who to trust. But Brett just never has shown up, and Vince lost the title, and everybody's screwed. And that, I understand Vince, and I understand business. Was it right? No. Was it wrong? Probably.
I definitely think it was.
Would it have happened today? No. I think today there's other rules and laws and new stuff that would have happened. Social media's around even more.
Oh my God! Imagine if it was
today.
around then.
You know, you got to remember during this Austin era there was no social media like there is today. So whatever Stone Cold did and said, we learned about through magazines, watching a TV, or other friends. We didn't go on Twitter and see him tweeting live like he does today. And what he says today isn't nearly none of the stuff that he did back then. You know, you had him in this huge feud, like I said, with Vince McMahon. They fought each other neck and throat. Vince did everything in his way and threw everybody at Austin to make sure that he would lose that title, not get matches, you know, disqualified from Royal Rumbles. They made him number one another year.
He won a Royal Rumble, Vince, and the title, didn't he?
He did later on, but, you know, there was another match. They made Austin number one, Vince number two, or Vince number 30. There was, you know, he threw Dude Love at him. He threw Mankind at him. He threw all the faces.
Even threw The Rock at him.
The Rock and the Stone Cold had one of the greatest feuds ever in the world. Those two went back and forth at it.
Tell me about it.
You know, they each had their own style of title belt. The Smoking Skull belt from Stone Cold.
And the Piranha Bull belt from The Rock.
And they would go back and forth, and each would have their belt. It was just a beautiful time in wrestling. Both were larger than life.
Awesome.
You gotta, you know, if you go back further, it's like, you know, it'd be as two stars as big as Hulk Hogan fighting each other. It'd be like Hogan versus Savage in 5, or Hogan versus Warrior in 6.
I wish Orton and Cena got as big as Stone Cold and Rock. They feuded so many times, too many times.
Cena tried. Cena got close. He is close to, maybe, he's close to The Rock. But the excitement level is not there when he is in the ring. Not like The Rock can electrify the crowd, and definitely not like The Rock versus Undertaker did. I mean, and Stone Cold and all these guys would fight each other. You know, that was the thing. You know, he feuded with The Undertaker as well.
They had great matches with the Ministry of Darkness. The Ministry of Darkness,
and they had this whole thing. And you know, they kidnapped
Stephanie McMahon.
Kidnapped Stephanie McMahon. They were driving Austin crazy, and all of a sudden we saw this shadow of a man. We didn't know who it was, but the devil himself. And one day he just pulled off the mask and he said in great words, "It was me, Austin. It was me." And it was Vince McMahon himself, and he was behind the whole ministry.
It was me all along, damn it.
Kidnapping his own daughter, and you had these intricate storylines that would go on for weeks and weeks and weeks, with great pay-per-view endings, total matches, and you had Stone Cold at the top of it.
But the most fun, it wasn't a rivalry, even though they may not count it because it wasn't really an in-ring wrestling rivalry, but great promo rivalry of all time with Stone Cold and Mr. McMahon himself.
It was. I mean, he's had some great rivalries over the years and some quite questionable moments. He had that whole thing with Brian Pillman later on. You know, and they had that was one of the time when they had the gun on TV.
Imagine if that happened nowadays.
Oh my God, everybody in America would be crying. TV would be canceled. Wrestling would be canceled. Everybody would be canceled.
I looked it up that Raw almost got canceled in UFC in the early 90s when that happened. Imagine now.
They did. You know, that was to the extreme. You know, they entered the guy's house. They showed the gun. He's brandishing. There are people are shooting. It's going off the air. Nobody knows about kayfabe. It's not like today. They don't know if it's scripted. People don't know what the hell is going on. If people got shot, it's just total pandemonium. There's no, again, social media, so there's no Twitter to go check results and what's going on in the world. There's none of that. You're watching it, the show ends, it's over. You don't know anything. And that was one of the greatest feuds. You had the McMahon feud. And they did get into the ring a few times. They wrestled each other. McMahon
it was so funny when
fought him a few times.
Vince tried to fuck him. Cheat every way possible against Austin.
Oh, he did. You know, found every trick in the book. And like I said, he fought The Rock. He fought Mankind. He fought Undertaker.
But here's a pivotal Stone Cold flagship moment is when they were in the Hockey Town, USA in Detroit, Michigan in the Joe Louis Arena. I remember watching him when I was younger when he took the frickin' Zamboni.
Oh my God, that was a classic moment. He took the Zamboni out and he chased McMahon with it. I'll never forget that. As a kid, you remember these things.
I really do. Like, I was a kid in the Attitude Era, but I was a teenager, blossomed with wrestling knowledge during the Ruthless Aggression Era. But I remember all these big moments with promos in the Attitude Era. Stone Cold was a big flagship moment for me, signalizing my beginning to watching wrestling. The big four for me growing up, right, that led, it's Triple H, The Rock, and obviously for me, Cena's pivotal for me growing up in my teenage years, but the big four, what got me into it was Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, Stone Cold, and Undertaker. That's what wrestling was centered around, especially. I watched videotapes of the New Generation era. Those are the four that caught my eyes.
Those are the four that really, really blossomed. Undertaker, he blossomed out of that. You know, he got out of his little dead man routine and got into something a little bit more darker. Continuing, as Paul Bearer kind of moved on a little bit from him, he went into Mankind, then finally into Kane, then the Brothers of Destruction. Undertaker really took off. Bret Hart, from then till now, took off. He was the face of the company for many years after Hogan. But, you know, to replace him was HBK. You know, he started off as the IC champion, then they had great matches. Then he becomes world champion at WrestleMania 12. Amazing.
That was a great... I'll never forget watching that
Iron Man match is my favoriteest match that he's had.
Oh, I loved it.
You know, he came from the top of the arena down. It was a magical moment.
Nowadays, if you had an Iron Man match and the score was 0-0 going into sudden death, the internet would have shit right over it.
Oh, they would have said no one's winning. They would have been asleep. Nobody even has the attention span for that right now. Okay? But, you know, speaking of, like, matches like that, how about that Stone Cold Bret Hart I Quit match?
Oh, my God, at that Mania right before the Boston one. That overshadowed that main event.
Oh, it did. That was probably the match of the night.
That's what got a lot of people into wrestling that technically tuned out from what I've heard. I was a little toddler then, so I didn't watch that Mania. But I've watched it so many times in the future. And holy shit, did Stone Cold bleed so
I just
badly.
remember the blood pouring from Austin's face.
With the frickin' sharpshooter.
With the sharpshooter locked in, and he's just screaming in agony. And he gave it his all.
And he didn't even tap out.
Nope. And, you know, that really solidified him fighting Bret Hart that way. Bret was the man to beat. Yeah, by that point, he was starting to lose steam. But he still was the face of the company at that time. You know. And I think Austin came in. He had something to prove. He dominated him. He moved on to the next man, Shawn Michaels, DX, and Matt.
They say that WrestleMania before, which one was it?
13?
13 was the one that's solidified Stone Cold as the next face of all of wrestling.
It did. It really brought him into the next light. Why? 14 brought him into the championship realm. 13 is what brought him into the wrestling world. Mm-hmm. Okay? Yeah, like I said, that Bret Hart match was another pivotal match against... It just was another turning point. And if you can go back and watch that, I definitely would. One of the key Austin matches. I mean, they're all great. But that one is just one of the better of them.
Yeah, absolutely. How can we forget that signature match with Bret Hart?
You know, and that Bret Hart feud lasted for a little bit. And I think that helped him, too, launch his career. And, you know, like I said, he had that attitude, the perfect attitude. It grew on all of us. We wanted something more edgier. Wrestling was edgier back then. Okay? The women were more edgier. Sex was introduced into wrestling heavily between the males like Val Venus and stuff and the females with their Brian Ferry matches. Ladies. You had, you know, all sorts of different mature elements being thrown at us, and we're young teens If you were a fan, you've been watching it since the 80s. You've seen the rock and roll. You see the next generation, new generation. Now all of a sudden, you're seeing a more edgier, more racier, more adult-like product as you're starting to mature yourself, and it really grew into us. And we loved it. Looking back at it, with everything that flew, none of it would have flown today. The whole thing would have been canceled. WWE probably would have been canceled, taken off the air.
That's horrific to think about.
It is horrific to think about it, but the things that they got away with back then were brilliant. Austin wouldn't even be allowed on TV right now. They would say he was an anti-authoritative figure causing, mass destruction and not, a bad role model, when in reality he was just fighting the tyranny of the boss.
What he wanted to be a guy who did whatever the fuck he wanted, and Vince ironically wanted to do whatever he wanted. And
if you look
as
at
a character,
if you look at Austin, he was a blue-collar wrestler. Like the normal Joe Schmo that goes to work every day with their boss, and he just wanted to go and do his job.
They don't call him the Texas Rattlesnake for nothing. The guy loves to just drink beer, kick ass. That's why he got so popular with boys and dads at the time, because I remember when I was younger in the elementary school days, we just knew the faces. We knew Stone Cold, we knew The Rock and everything, even Stinger, Goldberg when the Monday Night Wars were occurring. We just repeated all the stuff we heard on TV. But I hate to be sexist. I'm not trying to be sexist or anything. Every teacher, woman that was over the age of 30 that had kids hated wrestling. But all the dads that were over 30 loved it and always let their kids get out of bed to watch Monday nights. And that was me with my father.
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely. And like I said, Austin would come out. He would drink a beer. You also had, like I said, you had ECW at the time, which was very racy, edgy wrestling. More beer drinking if you liked Sandman. But you had Austin come out, smashing beers, drinking beers.
Giving hell yeah.
Throwing the finger, doing everything but saying basically, fuck you on TV. And it just grew. I remember my friends being younger than me loving it. Just loving it. Little kids loving it.
That doesn't happen a lot nowadays.
No, I don't see anybody in the wrestling industry holding such a dominance over the fan base where people want to be like them. Yeah, they like Roman Reigns. Yeah, they like Seth Rollins. Yeah, they like Becky Lynch. But you know what? They're not life-changing wrestlers. They're not the people like Austin. They're not the people like The Rock. They're not people like even Mankind or Undertaker. These are like the Mount Rushmore wrestling in the last 30 years.
Absolutely. I'm grateful I was alive. Do I wish I was my age now during the Attitude Era? Absolutely I do. But I'm glad to learn from it. It was a great upbringing for me. And Stone Cold was the flagship guy in my childhood besides The Rock, of course.
And it's just, as Stone Cold, he's overcome injuries. That devastating neck injury
by Owen Hart, which almost paralyzed and killed Stone Cold.
And I think it's the reason to this day why they do not allow pile drivers besides The Undertaker and Kane to do them in the WWE.
Makes a lot of sense, because before his tragic death, I watched clips of biography on YouTube, and Stone Cold, I'm surprised he was able to pin Owen Hart, because Owen Hart knew he screwed up. He was just rolling around, because that was part of the finish, was to Austin to beat him for the Intercontinental title and pin him.
And that was a tough match to get through, and he did it. And, like I said, that changed the way wrestling was done. They stopped doing certain moves. We've gotten better protection against wrestlers. But you still had all the concussions back then. You still had the hit chair shots. You still had all these things. The cut and the bleeding. That's gone now. They don't do any of that now. They were very limited. So you had him overcoming all these injuries, and he still persevered. I mean, he went on to keep wrestling for quite some time after the Attitude Era.
Well, if you think about it, I want to get into, before we settle for the night, we got to talk about the 3 WrestleMania matches Stone Cold had with The Rock. One in WrestleMania's 16, 17. I remember the flagship one, the Ruthless Aggression Era. Both of them knew they were on their way out with Stone Cold about to retire because of his neck injury, and The Rock was leaving for Hollywood full time. Their 2003 match was unbelievable to cap a rivalry, even though he'd lost to The Rock.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, the thing is he had already beaten The Rock many times before. And I think both of them were on, like you said, Austin's ready to retire with the neck injury, and he's doing his own thing in Hollywood. The Rock has his Hollywood career blossoming. He took off ever since he did The Mummy. He really took off. So, you have these two great going at it. Really, the only person to really win that match is the fans, no matter win or lose.
Because they were both perfect for each other. It was like the Tom Brady and Peyton Manning of sports entertainment.
They had unbelievable chemistry in the ring. The electrifying feeling that would happen when those two got together.
Two of the best promo guys of all time.
Oh, when they would going at it, would go on the mic back and forth. I mean, The Rock was something, but Austin could just give it with the best of them. And I'm just thinking about some of his other matches. Sorry to jump back and forth, but it's just such an awesome career. He had that Buried Alive match with The Undertaker. I was thinking about, and he did some promo work there, and that was good. He had the forklift. He's done all this in his career, but like you said, that last match against The Rock, classic match. Maybe he didn't win it, but he gave one hell of a performance.
I remember WrestleMania, 17? Stone Cold actually, and The Rock actually had a huge double turn.
Yep. They had that too.
That he joined alliances with Vince McMahon. I can't believe that actually happened to this day.
Oh, when Austin turned, and I never thought I would see that. Remember watching that and being like, what is going on right here? Just not only how many years ago these two were at each other's throats trying to kill each other, now they're going to be friends. You also had the Milkmania going on with Kurt Angle. That's another classic Stone Cold Austin moment. He's had so many moments. You had the what moment. When he just came on here going, what? What?
What?
What? Still to this day, people still use that.
Stone Cold could walk into a wrestling ring right now and people would still somewhat tune in and they would still get on their feet listening to him talk despite him not competing in the match for so many years.
Oh, they would still do the same chants they did back in the late 90s. They would still do it.
I remember the 1000th episode of Raw when Stone Cold came out when Mr. McMahon was getting an award presented by Shane and Stephanie, and he's like, I don't give a shit what any of you want. The one person to think is me, Vincent Kennedy McMahon. Then Stone Cold comes out, and Vince was so horrified. It was like old times.
It was great. And, and even when we saw Austin in WrestleMania 30 coming out, sharing a beer in the ring with Hulk Hogan and The Rock, all three.
Speaking of your Mount Rushmore, there was no perfect place for that by the granddaddy of them all, and the Big Easy, WrestleMania 30.
And it was just perfect to have them out there. And it's one of the moments that just defied 30 for me and really just put into perspective. You got the three greatest wrestlers really to don the ring, in the ring at the same time, drinking a beer together. And, I thought for the whole moment that at any minute, the Texas Rattlesnake is going to, stun both of these two people and walk out drinking a beer. And it didn't happen, but I kept it in my back of the head. I was just waiting for him to just, kick Hogan in the stomach and throw the stunner on him.
Killer insights, eh?
Yep. But, I don't think we're going to be... I think we're going to see Austin again. I don't think he's done wrestling, but I don't think he's done on screen for WWE.
They might even have him in Tampa make an appearance. They need to sell tickets to get people to watch on Peacock somehow.
They do. I don't know if you'll see The Rock so much perform again. He's kind of really beyond wrestling now. I know they're teasing maybe a Rock versus Roman in a couple of years. But I would like to see Austin come back. And, maybe not, he can't wrestle, but maybe give us a cinematic match. We got all these legends doing cinematic wrestling matches now. Let's give Austin a cinematic match. He's perfect candidate.
Agree.
He's an actor. He's in movies. He knows what to do.
honestly, I would love to have a Stone Cold face if they ever paid him the money. I really wanted to see him versus CM Punk. Just the promos would have been amazing.
That would be great. Or you know what? Let's get,
Killer pipe bomb promos.
Let's get a match between him and The Rock one more time. Cinematic. They're both actors. They both can do it.
If WWE ever wants to get over 2-3 million viewers, whatever they average, that would be the way to do it.
That would be the only way right now they can do that.
The internet would be crapping all over it, but because of part-timers, but they would love it at the same time. It's weird what the internet fans have become.
Oh, yeah.
They don't know what they want.
They don't know if they want the part-timers to win and the old-timers to win, or who they want to win. It's quite funny. But I'll tell you, Austin has had one of the most greatest, illustrious wrestling careers. He's fought for all three major promotions: ECW, WCW, and WWF, WWE. He's a legend in all three of them.
I will never forget him for the rest of my life.
No.
That would be an understatement.
He has made wrestling, I think he's brought in a whole fan base into wrestling that didn't exist during the end of the rock and roll era. It didn't exist during the new generation. He brought in this young, like you said, demographics of people that just wanted to raise hell.
If you wanted to fuse a college-age boy student and a redneck father, that's Stone Cold in a nutshell.
It is. And, he came on. He wasn't trying to be the role model of the company like Bret Hart. He wasn't trying to be the goody two-shoes and do the right things like Hulk Hogan. He wasn't throwing eat your vitamins and say your prayers down our throats. He was coming in to work every day, raising hell, no matter at any cost.
Shattering glass,
coming through the walls. They did that whole thing with, I'll never forget, they had Rikishi run him down. He did it for The Rock. You remember that?
Yeah, that was a while back, though.
Yeah, it was. That was one of
2000?
Yeah, 2000. That was one of Rikishi's probably, first things, wasn't it?
Yeah. He was shaking his distinct face. And I remember they faced each other in Armageddon in 2000, which Kurt Angle ended up winning. Speaking of Rikishi, when Undertaker chokeslammed him through the cell onto a truck full of hay.
That was insane, too. The thing that Austin put his body through to be entertaining for us was amazing. He really put his neck out there, literally put his neck out there.
Pun intended.
Pun intended. And, I congratulate him on his career. He has a very successful podcast. He has a very successful wrestling career.
He even has a show on the USA Network after Raw sometimes.
He can sit back and enjoy his life right now.
He does try to help the young talent, too, get over. He does have people on his podcast sometimes on the WWE Network. Maybe he'll get a bigger role on Peacock, I hope.
He might. I mean, he is the face of... He's been in multiple movies. He's been in multiple shows and stuff.
But my biggest hope at this point with Stone Cold is I'll continue to watch footage of the good old days and shatter Bear stunning Vince McMahon. But if you're listening, Stone Cold, please, next year, Dallas, Texas, your home state, please go to WrestleCon. And I'd love to have a beer with you. You can even stun me if you want.
Oh, hell yeah, that would be something. We would love to meet him out there. Get one of those 316 packages. Get some things signed. We have memorabilia up the ass. And, hopefully we get to see him at WrestleCon. I would love to meet him out there.
No perfect place than that. It's his home state.
It's his home state. Doesn't have to go far. And he's one of the people that I have on my list to meet.
Me too.
But, today I'll be doing, 316 things. I will definitely be going through the network, I'm sure they're going to post.
It'll be easy for me to honor him. I'll just go in my refrigerator and grab one of my dad's Bud Lights.
There you go. And like I said, I think
Maybe I'll try and drink 2 tomorrow.
Drink 2, smash them together. I think that the network will put his matches together. I'll go through pay-per-views that I remember and some of the Raws. You know, you got to remember he was the face of Raw is War back in the day after Monday Night Raw.
When you think of the Attitude Era, you really do think of Stone Cold.
He is the attitude that made the Attitude Era the attitude. Him and the Generation X, with those two attitudes combined, made the Attitude Era. And it was great.
No doubt about it. Gave us some plenty of great moments, sad moments, hilarious moments.
It did. It gave us some of the best moments, actually. You know, we've had a lot of moments in wrestling history from the early 80s till now. And, you know, Austin has probably given us some of the most memorable ones that we're still remembering sitting here 20 to 30 years later. You know? I remember his WCW days, you know, with the Hollywood Blondes. That's a long time ago. I remember his ECW matches. He was ruthless on there. I remember his early ringmaster matches, like I said, with Ted DiBiase. And he had the $1 million belt. These are all things, you know, that got him to where he had to be today. So, I don't think the Attitude Era would have ever existed without the birth of Stone Cold.
There's no way it would. Even if Vince had tried to go TV-14, it wouldn't have been the same. People would have just laughed instead of getting into it like Stone Cold.
You didn't have the characters. You had people like Goldust. Yeah, you had the edgy people like DX and this, but that was comedy. Austin was comedy, but Austin was also pure violence, pure destruction, and pure chaos. He raised hell, and that's what he did.
He was the one baby face that, like my dad, he loves heels. He's the one baby face my dad liked, in denial that he was a baby face.
He really wasn't a baby face, because technically, supposedly, he was doing the bad thing. Vince was the baby face, the president of the company. An old man, and he was beating the hell out of him. You know, and doing everything. I remember them dragging him out. They got him arrested. They got him kicked out of arenas. They did everything. And so, you know, that was it with Austin. They couldn't keep a good man down. So, with that being said, I look forward to, you know, checking out more of the matches. Maybe they'll have some hidden gem matches, some dark matches that we haven't seen before. As you know, there have been dark matches all throughout. And WWE Network's been pretty good at releasing some unreleased footage of these matches.
And you'll see if they'll have more merchandise besides the Smoke and Skull belt that they have as WWE title. They have a custom WWE title of Stone Cold.
I saw them release that, and now I'm thinking maybe, I don't know, but maybe we get an Austin 316 collector's box from the WWE shop.
Maybe you go to 7-Eleven and look for his new Funko. That's an idea.
Too. But, you know, I know the legends. They've made the Macho Man. They made Ultimate Warrior. They made Bray. They made Rowdy Piper, NWO. Austin is due for one. Tomorrow would be the day to release it. I heard Ringside Collectibles also releasing something special tomorrow for Austin 316 Day. Will we see? What will we see? I don't know. I mean, they tagged it Elite Squad. WWE Elite Squad, so it's a WWE Elite. It's probably 316 orientated. They started the commercial by saying, "Are you ready?" Are we going to see a DX related merchandise? Maybe an Stone Cold, Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 14 figure set?
Maybe they just do a Stone Cold and DX.
They might
5-6 figures.
They might
Why
do
not?
that. They might do a Stone Cold King of the Ring winner, like they did kind of with the Bret Hart. They could do so much with it. I will be interested to see what they get and put out tomorrow, and I'll probably buy it just because their ringside exclusives are on fire. But that's about all the time we have today. I thank you for tuning in to this Austin 316 special. Give me a hell yeah.
What?
Oh, hell yeah. I've been your host of Versace Stoner, here with the Sabe Wolf.
Peace out, drink some beers, flip some fingers, and give me a hell yeah. I'm signing out for the night.
Versace out.